turned. No, you're fine. So no, it's not there yet. It should. Well, it should turn like a darker blue in just a minute.
It minimized that. I might have to get you a new key. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Yeah, I've done that.
I don't know why it did that.
You okay?
I've literally never done an Instagram live, so
neither have we. We're just working it out together.
You're not sitting around. Although our big joke now is like the people who do like the QVC of everything now, and they just jump in, and it's like, okay, we got 3 minutes left, guys. We've got all these things to sell, and let's see.
All right, let's get here, and let's go.
Welcome everyone who is joining us for day number 17. I have learned that from watching these back is like, oh, we just sit here quietly for like the first 3 minutes because it is not the easiest thing to figure out how to get everything live and going. But yeah,
I have an excuse. I make bourbon. I know nothing about Instagram.
So. No, you're gonna learn something about it today. Here we go. I am adding the new. Okay, I'm adding that, and I'm hitting save. So it should change here in a second. What's up? Bourbon Pursuit is in the house. Notice Blake's impeccable audio. All right, and then I wanted to, before we go, just while we're here, I'm going to pop up my own YouTube chat so I can say hello to people from Abandoned Bourbon. All right, let's see. Drink. Everybody, as you're popping in, I want to hear. Let me know what your favorite day so far has been for the advent calendar. And please, let me know your favorite holiday expression. And please let me know where you're tuning in from. Thank you. Those are things I want to know.
All right. I think looks like we're live on 5 different channels. So
we're live on everything.
That could be a record there. I'll take it.
We're doing it live.
We'll do it live. But no, it's day 17 of the whiskey or Seelbach Advent calendar. So love to hear some of the favorite pours so far. What has surprised you most? What were you a bit unsure of that you thought, wow, this is actually really good? What have you never heard of? I don't think we'll have one of those tonight because I feel like most whiskey enthusiasts have at least tried Holladay, but we'll dive into it. One of my favorites, I think maybe my favorite visit of that was 2025, wasn't it? Did we do that this year? It's all starting to run together at this point. Or no, that would have been 2024 that Brian and I went.
I have no idea what you're saying.
When did we go out to Holladay?
Oh my gosh.
Holladay last year.
I think that was last year. I think that was
last year. That was 2024.
Yeah,
I did visit in January, but that was with my father-in-law, brother-in-law, and oldest son. And my oldest son would not stop moving and throwing snowballs at people. And I'm like, buddy, this is actually a professional setting. They will never sell to me again if you don't just sit still for 2 minutes. And did not work. Joys of 11-year-old boys. They do not, It's like,
he hung out over here by the fire for a bit, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. He was like, there's fire and there's snowballs. I can make something work with this. So this is good.
Looks like we got Clover Bourbon Bell over on Instagram. Hard Truth's been a good surprise. We've got Bourbon Pursuit also from Instagram saying, I'm tuning in from my bed. This is how I like my December nights. That sounds like a Ryan Adams song, but we'll take it.
It writes itself.
That's right.
Which I told Kyle, I'm like, man, you kind of like match what we wanted in our background, but in real life, I'm really jealous right now. Like just sitting softly by the fire and it's still burning and we're over here with the fake backdrop, but he's got the real thing. So
you make it sound like I don't have a real Christmas tree behind me. What are you talking about?
I kind of zoomed in on yourself. I can't quite see it. So
yeah, I did bring the camera a little close today. Let me
no, leave it where it is. Leave it where it is.
Just a little bit.
Well, cool.
There's another one for Leapers Fork. We heard some. Man, I got some messages in my DMs yesterday from Leapers Fork from people who you would have thought it was like a twist plot in chapter 13 of like a Sarah J. Maas book or something like that. They're like, dude, it's Leapers Fork, but it's a Tennessee whiskey. So
that's you always like the surprises. That is the fun. Well, cool. We good to get started?
I think so.
Yeah. Let's do it. Welcome, everyone. I'm Blake from Seelbach, joined here tonight with Brian and Kyle from Holladay Distillery. One of our favorites. If you follow Seelbach, you've seen them for multiple years now. We've had some incredible releases. Brian and I got a chance to visit as we discussed in the pre-show last year. And honestly, it was, I don't want to say surprising because we'd had the bourbon. We'd gotten some of the bourbon in. It was great. But like, you pull into that drive and you almost swear you're in Kentucky. It's like rolling hills, still big like good sized warehouses. And it was just a really different experience from what we have. So really incredible place to visit. If you're in Missouri, Kansas, neighboring states, Nebraska, I believe is fairly close. I don't know my geography well enough to say every state, but definitely give these guys a visit. But Kyle, thanks for joining us here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was really looking forward to seeing if you would mess up the bordering states of Missouri.
I should have checked the map. I went off of fifth grade geography there to see if I was.
Yeah, no, I mean, we definitely appreciate the support that you guys have shown early on, and it's been extremely crazy to relaunch a bourbon brand. And everything about what we're doing, it's very traditional in that sense, and that's what we try to emphasize a lot. Is when people come here, they see that everything what we're doing, it's similar, very similar to what you would see in Kentucky overall, and that's kind of carries through to everything about the story as well, and how we are making bourbon, and hopefully carries over through to the taste as well, and that it stands up with some of those. And that's kind of ultimately been our goal from the beginning. So,
No, that's it. It is a very fun and with some of these, I'm like kind of going through my thoughts and notes of like, what are we going to talk about? And with this one, I'm like, there's so much to dive into. I don't even know where to start, but this was a funny introduction because I feel like I'd started seeing it, and obviously we try to stay ahead of all things cool whiskey and craft, and y'all were gaining some traction with the whiskey enthusiast, and all of a sudden I get a message from a buddy, Brett Atlas. He's like, hey, why don't you have Holladay? And I'm like, man, I've sent them a message, but I only had like info@holladay.com, and in the DMs of the Instagram, he's like, hold on a second, I'll put you in the touch with the right person. And after that, it was just off and rolling. But no, really incredible stuff. And I think maybe one of the coolest places I've visited in the past couple of years, which is the office, which is in the warehouse. It's like these multi-layers of barrels, but then the first two or levels, I guess you'd say, is just an office space. And you go in, there's a bar, there's people working. I'm like, I don't know how we could ever make that work with Seelbach, but I want that office.
That Rick House A, it's phenomenal. It's questionable whether people are working or drinking. We don't always know what's going on up there, but it's a great spot.
Yeah, no, it was very cool for sure, and I feel like that's one, like, not a centerpiece, but it's just something that everybody's going to remember. Like, such a cool spot. And obviously the campus is amazing, but kind of on that same note of trying to figure out where we start these conversations. And with a lot of people, it almost seems like a cop-out answer to say like, well, how did you get here? Or tell us about what you make. But I feel like with y'all, it's such a really cool and interesting story of, having this heritage brand. It's a distillery that, has been making other things and really got back into the bourbon world. I feel like it's not really a cop-out question at all. Like, it's a super interesting one. So like, give us a little bit of the backstory of
Yep.
how things got started, how you got involved, and where it went from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you the quick elevator pitch, and we'll go from there. But we do have that history that rivals so many other distilleries. We were founded in 1856 by Ben and David Holladay. That's when it kind of started distilling bourbon on site. They had discovered that limestone spring water was located here. Lewis and Clark had discovered that in 1804, and so everything about this property, when they came up from Kentucky and they had that background, they knew that it had everything you needed to make bourbon. And so that was really the beginning of our history and of our story. And then from, 1856 up until the late 1800s, the Holladay family still had operated the distillery. And it was David Holladay, the brother, that was running it. Our bourbon, it's called Ben Holladay. He started it, but then he ended up being the Stagecoach King, largest private employer in the United States. Owned all those stagecoach lines running west, and ultimately sold that off to Wells Fargo. And so he built this giant enterprise. He did not do the distilling. He was, that was part of his enterprise, but that was not what he did actively. But yeah, it continued through the Holladay family, and then multiple changes of hands throughout history. We briefly operated, and I don't know the full history on this, but we have the medicinal whiskey that happened. We have the bottles that showed for medicinal purposes that we had done. And so we'd briefly operated, in those medical holidays or whatever they might have been. But ultimately, we had operated and made bourbon from 1856 up until 1985. We had this deep history, and we always made bourbon a certain way. It was our original mash bill. It's the one with the stagecoach on it, kind of honoring Ben Holladay. That was the original one we had always made. That was 73% corn, 15% rye, 12% malted barley. And, throughout our history, that was the only thing we had produced bourbon wise. And that was then what we were making up until 1985. At that point, different ownership group, they shut down bourbon production here at the facility. They had a location elsewhere in Illinois, so shifted their investment to that facility. Here, we continued to operate, but we focused in more on, bottling and all the items that were popular back in the 80s. So the vodka, and building out the portfolio there. 1993, different ownership group, continued to grow, but didn't really revive the bourbon until 2014, 2015 timeline. And so that's when it kind of was, okay, we have built out this portfolio, but we want to go back to our history, our roots, and really honor the tradition that we had and go back to bourbon. And so that's when we looked again at reviving everything that we have on site, renovating the still house and fixing up all those rick houses. We have two traditional rick houses that we use. And it was really about bringing back the past. So distilling it again in 2016, carried through until we released in 2022 with our first bottle. In 2023, that's when our soft red wheat mash bill came out in the bottle. That was, again, not part of our history, but, I always joke, Mick Harris, our president, he likes wheated bourbon, and I like keeping my job, so we made one. And we wanted to have, again, it's from the 80s, that wasn't maybe as popular, or even wasn't maybe common knowledge that people liked a wheated bourbon, or the consumer wasn't as into it as they are now. And so when we brought this back, we wanted to make sure we did so with a wheated offering. That's where it really respects the past. It's made the exact same way as our original mash bill, but that 15% rye, it subs in 15% soft red winter wheat. It's that study in one grain, switch one out for the other, and that's where that kind of falls in line. So that's kind of the quick rundown on history. Me, I honestly always say I lucked into being here. It's people ask me, I'm not related to the Holladay family. No one here is. But it's when I grew up on a farm in Northwest Kansas, had no bourbon history. My parents didn't even really drink in front of me. And so it was not a thought that I would be doing something like this. I went and got a bachelor's and master's degree in biological and agricultural engineering, fermentation focused. and then was making neutral spirits somewhere else before this opportunity came along. So I joined in 2016. So kind of they had started up everything, and I was brought on to run it full time from there. Knew I would have a job for 6 years, and then hoped that everybody would like the bourbon once they tried it. So
nothing like feeling a little bit of pressure of like, well, I got 6 years to hopefully believe what I made was good.
Yep, exactly. I thought it was. I thought it was good, but I was like, I definitely second guessed myself. And then obviously, and I mean, it's because of people like you guys. Bourbon outside of Kentucky is more commonplace, but you still, okay, how is bourbon from Missouri going to be perceived? How is that perception going to be about? And so, you always second guess and think about everything, but ultimately it obviously turned out pretty well. And we appreciate the support we've had ever since 2022 with the launch.
Yeah, for sure. And that is always the funny thing with bourbon these days. Like we're in this usually niche circle of, hey, bourbon enthusiasts, they're looking for new stuff. They're looking for stuff outside of Kentucky. And then we go and post a video, and it's like, sure enough, if we boost it on Facebook or Instagram, somebody's going to comment, yeah, bourbon can't be made outside of the state of Kentucky. It can only be made in Bourbon County, Kentucky.
It's not real bourbon. It's just whiskey.
Like, well, that's just not true. Like, I mean, I don't know how to explain to you how laws work, but that's not true. So I imagine that was a little bit of a concern going in of like, how will that be perceived? But it seems like people are getting it. And I mean, I at least hope so. And like, y'all are making some of the best bourbon on the market, and definitely with the weeded bourbon as well. But what were some of those initial releases like? Did you get a lot of the feedback of like, hold on, it's kind of like the old salsa commercial where it's like New York City is a little bit of that, or it's people kind of got it and they are like, hey, it's good, that's all that matters, or was there pushback early on?
It was all over the place. Yeah, you get some of that, and we still obviously, again, like what you said, you always get people that have that misunderstanding of the laws, and we have the history that helps to we have been making it forever, and that helps with that. When you come on site, there's no question that this property can make bourbon. Just looking here, and ultimately, we always talk about Missouri bourbon as a whole, as a category. It's a state law that was passed in 2019, and that was something that, if you look at it on the surface, everything that you need to make bourbon is here. We're very small border, but technically a border state with Kentucky, and so it's we're hot, a degree or two hotter and a degree or two colder, but we have the corn, we have the barrels, we have the oak that's grown here, and so the Missouri Bourbon Act, it's you make it here, you use Missouri corn, then you use a Missouri-made barrel with Missouri-grown oak, and all of those things. Those are things that others in the industry use, and the Missouri oak, it's a big part of it. And so, everything we need to make bourbon is here, and we tell that story, and I think it does resonate with people. Obviously, the biggest thing that always resonates people is taste and just trying the product, and that's the biggest thing that you just, if you taste, that's what always matters. I didn't even talk about, I assume everyone knows what we're actually tasting. Speaking of,
well, I was going to say that's the perfect lead in to, because I get so caught up in the stories. That's what is exciting to me. Like, I already know the bourbon's good, but perfect lead into what are we tasting tonight?
Yeah. So when we were, and thank you for including us in this Advent calendar. It's when we first heard about it and we're talking about it, it's like, that would be a great spot for our Holladay soft red wheat rickhouse proof. And so that's what this is, that soft red wheat mash bill, and it's that rickhouse proof level. Have a bottle here, it's our red label, if I can figure out which way to put this with the camera. Our red label, it is foolproof, cask strength, whatever other term you want to use, we use rickhouse proof here on site. This one that we're trying tonight is actually coming from our September batch. So I don't know I'll go into that in a bit of detail. So when we do our bottlings, we do on the strip stamp talk about or show the batch month that we have, and then there's a side chart that shows where the barrels came from in the rick house for that batch. So there's percents of barrels. That's the percent of the batch that came from each floor, 1 through 7. This batch, again, it's coming from September of 2025 bottling season that we had. So just for perspective information, this came from our Rickhouse C. It had 6 total floors of the Rickhouse that came from it. That's not typical. That's probably, it is the most we've had in a batch. It came 7% from floor 1, 12% floor 2, 13% floor 3, 10% floor 4, 18% floor 5, 40% floor 6. There will be a test. I fully expect everyone will memorize all of that real quick. But it's really going into the transparency and the detail of, we want you to know where this came from. And we want you to know that this is a traditional age, and each batch is ever so slightly different, subtle, and unique. And so we have that on our website as long as I stay up to date on it. Our PR.
Yeah, it looks like the last one's from February this year. Is that up to date or okay?
Ryan, why do you have to call him out on the website update?
No, because
our PR people have yelled at me multiple times. For the record, it's my fault. I say I'm from Western Kansas. I'm not used to talking to people in general, so here I am on an Instagram. But then also, I'm an engineer, so I really am not good at writing. So I procrastinate these Distillers Journal like no other. So it takes me a bit, but we do try to stay up to date on those at least periodically. I'll get a batch of those in with the holiday season. I'm going to push those through and get those lined out. But yeah, this one is September. You can go once I get my notes all about that. You can look at all the details behind it, bottling proof, and we show Angel Share. We show specific locations those are coming from in the Rick House. All of those nerdy details that a select few people want to know, and the rest of the general public could care less about. So
I did throw the Distillers Journal into the chat though, because the reason I said it, Blake, is because for the last couple of years, I've thought that's one of the most interesting things about Holladay is that you can go in there and through the years you can see for the Ben Holladay products or for the soft red wheat and see what that breakdown is and just get a little bit of information either about the floor breakdown, what the proofs are, or just Kyle's notes in general about it. And again, being one of those nerdy folks, I appreciate being able to see that. And it helps to show that there even is differences when it comes to batches, because I think somebody, even a general person can see something that's a small batch and they're like, well, I've been told they do that because it's a batch and it makes flavors consistent batch over batch. And so there's no difference because it's a small batch and that's what they do. And I think that this at least even gets to show, I don't know, sometimes you decide to do something different. Sometimes you decide to say, hey, what if we only rolled out all 7 years and made the marketing team make a different label than what we should have done, or something, just anything like that,
on Christmas, November 2023 might have happened. I think
that's right.
I was going to say that's why we have brought all these distillers in, so we can just pressure them to say like, hey, by the way, we would really like an all 7-year batch. No, that is not the case.
Yep.
We've even moved on to 8 from then, right?
I think Benjamin had a good question of what do you see it as Missouri having a unique aspect on bourbon in general, the wheated bourbon, because to me it's just like I don't know, like I would not say, and you can disagree with me, but I'm like I wouldn't be like, oh well, Missouri does this so much better. I'd just be like, this is just incredible bourbon, and it's if you're a traditional bourbon drinker, you're gonna really like it. But do you think like the climate and everything else brings a different aspect to it? Stuff y'all are doing on the distillation side brings a different aspect to it, or you're just trying to make the best possible thing and go from there?
Well,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
on that note, before Kyle goes into it too, because Kyle did say all the things they did about corn grown or using barrels, but I don't think you specifically said that Missouri, to be a Missouri straight bourbon whiskey, you have to, right?
yeah.
Can you tag on and also say about that being a requirement for Missouri straight bourbon whiskey?
Yeah, so 2019 is when that passed legislation, and it was that identifier of, what do you have to do to be defined as a Missouri bourbon? And it was all the things that we were ultimately doing already, but it was, Missouri grown corn. It had to be made here in the state of Missouri, distilled, all of the things, and aged here. And then it has to use the barrels that are made in the state of Missouri, and with that Missouri white oak. And so it's, it was really highlighting ultimately the two agricultural sectors that are important to the state, with the forestry region and then the agriculture of corn. It really highlights that, and it's one of those things where there are a growing number of distilleries, and it was passed in 2019, so there's others that are doing it. We were ultimately complying with it from the beginning, and so everything we've had from the beginning has stated this as well. Kind of going back to then what makes it unique or different, and I think it is true. I think ultimately we want to make very good bourbon. We want to make the best possible bourbon that we can. That is always the goal. That is always the thought process. And we're not doing so thinking, okay, this is a Missouri play or this is a Missouri specific thing. We're not trying to designate this category. We're not doing this, the Tennessee with the charcoal filtration. That's not a different thing that we're doing there. It's taking Missouri and using everything we have and making bourbon. I will say there are a couple caveats that immediately came to my mind, or at least one that came to my mind when we were talking about that or thinking about that. It's the weather and the rick houses are different here. And so I'll go into that briefly. So again, we're similar climate. We're not like we're Wyoming or Texas. It's not the extremes. We are very close, very similar overall. It's not a dramatic shift. Again, if you look at it, we are a degree or two hotter in the summer, degree or two colder in the winter. Ultimately, when we look at, the weather patterns we get here, the next day Kentucky's getting them. So it's very similar overall. What is different though, that I think, and this isn't specific to Missouri, but it is for us, is the size of the rick houses. You kind of talked about it a bit in the opening. We don't have these massive 50,000 barrel warehouses. That's not what we have. Ours are this 10,000 barrel capacity. And we have felt like this is a specific thing for us that we wanted to talk about more, because it kind of goes into what is the future and what is the potential for aging. If you think about this as it's this giant thermal mass up there on the hill, and it retains all of this temperature, and it's this heat sink essentially. And so when you get this fluctuation, we have 10,000 barrels instead of 50,000. We can shift, and it can increase or decrease a bit quicker than if you have these massive houses. With that, then I think we see a bit of a shift in the age. For us at the 6-year mark, that might taste a bit different than what a 6 year from this 50,000 barrel house might. And likewise, I don't ever see us having a 20-year-old product. I think that would become overly just impossible to drink. It would be, no one would want to, because we see too much of that fluctuation.
I would want to, Kyle. I would want to.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of one of those things that with what we have, or what we have with combination of the weather and our location, that I think does kind of make it a bit unique. That's where my mind first went. But ultimately, we want to make high quality bourbon, and that's always our goal. And
you guys use Independent Stave for all of your stuff, because Independent Stave has a Missouri cooperage.
They do,
in addition to a Kentucky cooperage, right?
Yep. So we use Independent Stave. They're down in Lebanon, Missouri. They also have the Lebanon, Kentucky one as well. But the Missouri one, and the Missouri one for them, I think and maybe I doubt anyone from there is watching this and going to call me out, but I think they do a lot more of the wine side of the business there in the Missouri. And so not as big of a bourbon barrel production. They've shifted that now more towards the Kentucky side, but yeah, we're still using that Missouri cooperage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that was going to be one of my little nuggets for everybody watching. Was if you look on a bourbon barrel, there's you have the rungs on the barrel, and there's always stamped with ISC barrels. It's going to either say KY or MO, and how much Missouri oak is out there floating around with bourbon releases that we love. Like Missouri is a big part of bourbon, whether people realize it or not. Just because of ISC and everything that they do with producing barrels for the bourbon world. I mean, and I don't know, in Cal, maybe but I would assume even on the Kentucky production plant, a lot of that oak is still coming from Missouri. And I feel like it is just a huge part of the bourbon world, and people are starting to realize, like, oh, yeah, this makes sense. Like it's been a part of it forever, but we just not have the details because of, what was popular in bourbon.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, again, I don't know the percents or anything like that, but I do know that it is a big part of their, their.
Here's the thing. You can just make up any percentage you want. You're going to say 85 to.
Yeah. It is a big part of their supply chain, and it is, and that is a cool thing about where the bourbon community is that, one, there's people that want to know that level of detail. It's not just, hey, I'm going to throw this in with X mixer here and just get drunk. Like I'm appreciating the spirit that I have, and that there are people and places that are now providing that level of detail as well. And so yeah, it's a cool time to be in the bourbon game for sure in that sense as well.
Yeah. And this is where I've tried to make myself better about this, but I realize we're 30 minutes in, and I'm like, we haven't even really talked about the whiskey and tasting notes. We've talked about whiskey some, but like when you're nosing, tasting the soft red wheat, like what are some of the bigger flavors you're getting? What are some of the things that you're shooting for to make sure they're in each batch that you love, or just you want it to be kind of that backbone of the product, so no matter what batch it is, people are getting from this whiskey?
Yeah, I'm notoriously not good at answering that question, and I'm going to,
you're like, well, the pH
my
level
way around that,
and then
I'll leave it to you
that's
guys.
why we have Brian here. That's why
I leave it to you guys to do more of the tasting notes. I think when I'm tasting any bourbon, it's always kind of maybe a bit more clinical. It's more of, okay, how does this compare to the last batch? Or I do a lot more of the nosing and tasting for faults. I want to make sure that there's not any off flavors or things that I don't want to be there. More so than what I am trying to create a batch with the specific flavor profile. If we're making high quality bourbon, the flavor profile, it's going to stay fairly consistent, and then the floors, we can play with it and it can have that variance. I'm not necessarily steering that towards anything as much as just embracing the barrels that we have of age. And so, yeah, I'm gonna pass it over to Brian to, let him go through it. But
one thing early on that I kind of always, we kind of talked about a little bit about, having a profile. One of the things I appreciated about Holladay from the beginning is having a profile that it's not to say that it's comparative directly to a Kentucky producer, but I do think it has like a legacy type of flavor profile, and I think it shares a lot of kind of similarities with Heaven Hill, and I think that I think that's even a hard statement to say about Kentucky producers that are not a legacy producer, right? So to be able to say something like that about a non-Kentucky producer, I think is pretty nice. The soft red for me, and in general, honestly, I think as I was learning more about bourbon, I'd love to hear you all chime in on this too. But as I was learning more about bourbon, I thought I was always told, and honestly, even like the leading name of something like this, like soft red wheat, I think I was always told that wheat came with a softer, more delicate profile. And honestly, I feel like more often than not, that's not what I run into. I feel like wheated whiskeys can sometimes give maybe a more blanketing, velvety type texture, but I tend to find them have spice in a different way than rye bourbons do, but still can bring their own levels of spice. And so that's neither here nor there necessarily in like, it's not answering a question that somebody had or that one of you all brought up, but it is just something as I'm tasting this that I'm noticing, because I feel like I get a lot of nougat, a lot of chocolate. I get the background of some kind of darker fruit notes. You get a little cherry, you get a little fig in there as well. But then I do get like kind of a wave of spice, but it also just kind of sits there. And it kind of lays on the palate, and especially with the Rickhouse proof.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, it's, to me, this is kind of right up my alley. It's got those chocolatey, nougaty notes. There is the dried cherry. It's balanced. Like, this is 20.4 proof bourbon that we're drinking, and it's still like that velvety texture, like really delicious tasting. And you know, we get caught up in it at times. It's like, well, is it this or is it that? And like, is it good or is it not? And this to me is like, I would pour this maybe not every night of the week. That wouldn't be amazing for my livelihood, but it just is a great pour. And I think that's part of why I fell in love with Holladay initially, because it's like, this is just delicious bourbon. It's at a good price. And I try not to sound too salesy on these things, but it is like, I'll be honest, like, it is all the things that I really like about some of the mainstream bourbons. It brings a new aspect of it. It's at a good price point. And I think that's what drew us in so much early on, was just because it hit all those, you know, kind of check marks for us at Seelbach. It made us really enjoy it. And then Brian
too. Oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna say, and then Brian made me listen to like hardcore music in the tasting room to pick barrels, and I'm like, okay, I need that aux cord, and I can't listen to Skrillex or whatever you're into, Brian. And
I forgot about that. Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I like to keep people guessing.
Kind of going on with all of that as well. I do agree with you, Brian, on it's not necessarily, this isn't a bourbon that's going to just there is depth and complexity to it, especially the Rickhouse proof, the 120 proof. We are not aiming for this bourbon that's just super easy to drink with no character to it. That's obviously never what we want. And so I think that subtle spice profile to it, however you want to describe that, as well as, you know, just that slight amount of the mouthfeel is different. I do agree with that, but it's just, ultimately, we're not looking for this thing that's just going to be very straightforward, maybe a vanilla bomb, or just a straightforward, you know, whatever. It's the complexity we want to carry through, and it is a wheated bourbon, but it's not, I don't think, a stereotypical wheated bourbon in some of those senses as well. And so, especially this Rickhouse proof, again, we gravitate towards that, and I think a lot of people do, because it provides all of those things you like about a wheated bourbon, but it really amps up the flavor on a lot of those things, and it's not going to stand down and have no character with it as well.
And while I will say this, while it has been increasingly like easier to find things like larceny or whatever, you know, barrel proofs, like those things on the shelf, that's only as of recent. Before that, you know, one of the things I appreciate again about a product like the soft red wheat Rickhouse proof is like, I think 8 out of 10 times it's going to beat a larceny barrel proof, right? And for a while you couldn't get those. And so, these are the types of pours that we love to see here at Seelbach, because it helps introduce people, even somebody who's able to find a pour like that, right? You still want options. And so you're able to say, hey, I've got something for you that you're going to find better than your current go-to. And it's a distillery you've never heard of, and it's not from Kentucky, and it might even have more expansive flavor. And I think being able to find the things that are familiar, but bring a different perspective is like what is a joy for us here at Seelbach.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal, is like, we want people trying different things. Obviously, like, we're not haters of Kentucky, but at the same time, like, I think there's so much good stuff out there, and we may sound a little biased at times, because I feel like we promote Holladay as, like, if somebody emails us and like, oh, I like this and that, we're like, yeah, just get Holladay. Like, soft red wheat, you're gonna love it. It's gonna have all the characteristics that you like in the classic sense of bourbon, but it's got more to it. And I hope that doesn't sound like we're just copying out on certain things, but it is the truth. Like, that's where I feel like we're the part where we are with bourbon, where there are so many good things out there, but if you like classic, really good Kentucky bourbon, like, why would you not like this? And that's the fun of the kind of the advent calendar for us, as well, as just to expose people to those different pours, to let them try it, come back for a bottle, and you only have to buy it from Seelbach. Like, Holladay has very good distribution. Like, grab it at your local retailer. Obviously grab it from us if you feel so inclined, but ultimately we want people trying these things to go and go buy a bottle if you enjoy it. And I think this is one especially where people will try it and they're like, oh, if they hadn't had it before, it's like, wow, I need to go get a bottle of that to have it on my shelf. So that's the ultimate goal with the advent calendar.
Now, Kyle, I do have another question though. If I know you mentioned, if you were all to have a 20-year-old bourbon, it probably wouldn't taste very good. But
Kyle, you should have mentioned 20-year-old bourbon. He's gonna go.
I'm just wondering, what if you did let a bourbon age that long, but it's spent a majority of its life aging in a cave? Do you think that would change
I was
your
thinking
opinion?
we weren't going to have enough time to dive into the cave, but
look, I'm just wondering. I just didn't know if you thought a 20-year-old bourbon that was aged in a cave, if that was a premise that someone could build upon for a release of an aged bourbon.
Maybe. I'm trying to think if I'll be retired before that. No, I don't. Yeah. So it's it's always a possibility. We have the cave, as you are referencing, the cave collection that we do, and it's been a distillery exclusive release that we've done playing around with things. And it's just when the Holladay brothers bought this property, there was a cave that had been built in 1837, I think 1839. I'm not 100% sure on dates, but it was this kind of just landing spot for tours for us. And then we ended up putting ricks in there and doing experimental stuff and finishing bourbon in there. So our toasted barrel finishes or double oak, that's happening in the cave. We don't have any barrels that are just, first fill bourbon barrels that have lived their life there yet. I'm not sure how that would work. It might be fine. It gets pretty humid in there during the summer. I'm not sure on the taste profile where that would line out, but it'd be fun to play with.
We've only got 20 years to figure it out. So
Yep,
we will see everybody in 2045 to
I expect everyone in this live to be back here.
Yeah, that's fun. Well, cool. Well, I don't want to keep everybody too long. And everybody has places to be, but Kyle, honestly, this was a lot of fun. I feel like was super excited when I heard you were joining, just because of all the fun aspects. I feel like there's probably 12 more questions we could ask, but thank you so much for joining us. This has been a lot of fun, and no, thanks for cranking out this bourbon. We're super big fans here at Seelbach. Love supporting you guys the best way we can, and hopefully everybody goes and grabs a bottle after this. So thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, that'll wrap us up for tonight. We are on day 17. Hard to believe. We only have just a few more. And on my closeout, I will also mention I'm going live Christmas Eve from my house. My kids opening up. Oh my
gosh, she's doing it.
Just kidding. My wife does not think those jokes are funny whenever I say that I'm going live on Christmas Eve. But no, thank you everyone who has joined us here on these lives, participating in the Advent calendar. It's been a lot of fun for us. Hopefully everybody else is enjoying all the different samples and trying different things. Support these guys. Holladay is doing some incredible stuff. We didn't even get to put Kyle on the hot seat, even more of like, well, what's coming to Seelbach from Holladay in 2026? But we'll do that off the show. And no, it's been a lot of fun. So thank you all for joining us. And Brian, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, just a reminder for folks, we are back again on the 19th. I, as a reminder to Blake, will not be on that one, but we're back for the 19th, the 21st, the 22nd, and still question mark on what is happening on the 24th. So please join us on our additional lives. If you all don't remember, if you're watching on the replay, remember that this QR code that's up in that corner will take you to our Advent calendar page where you can see all the products. If you have the book at home, you can see those products in the book. QR codes can take you to where you can order them, or if we don't have them, what we have similar. And again, the way that we know if you all have enjoyed doing this is by leaving a comment or sending us your pictures, sending us an email, or letting the producers know that you were able to find them, fall in love with them through the Advent calendar. Those are the only ways that we're going to know whether you all enjoyed it or else we're just going to think that we sold a bunch of these sets and everyone hated it and everyone is sad and they did not like it. So we do not think that's the case. We'd love to hear from you guys so that we know that for a fact.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining us. We will see you. I will see you on the 19th. We will see how I show up, but no, I'm just kidding. I'll be here, be another fun one. So yeah, thanks everyone. Have a good night.
Cheers, everybody.